I'm going to be talking about two things, and both of those are going to involve electrons. So let's take a dive for just a moment into the very, very small realm. So if you remember your basic model of an atom, in the very middle we have protons and neutrons. Protons have a positive charge. Our neutrons have no charge. We're going to ignore them. They don't exist in what we're up to today. The electrons are taking most of the volume of an atom, and they're on the outside. The electrons that we're going to first be talking about are our innermost electrons, the electrons furthest into our atom. And so those actually need a lot of energy in order for them to interact with these. So we're going to do some X-ray fluorescence, and X-rays have very high energy. So we're getting to that just in the middle part of our lecture. So start with this. We're going to start with one larger piece of metal here. So we have this nice piece of metal. Now, anybody looking at this, I hope you look at this and we say, yes, metal. Do I know what kind of metal? Absolutely not. So it would be really helpful when you're doing things like preserving things or figuring out what the technology is and things that made this to know what is even in this metal. So we're going to take a scan of it. Okay, and you can see there's two very, very large peaks. We're going to talk about the blue lines here in just a second. Red lines are the one that we're interested in. We saw those come up as we took the scan. And those red lines are the electrons telling us, hey, I have this energy. And that tells us which atoms are present. Now, every atom and those electrons is very significant of which one is which. So it's telling us information about which atom that is. So I can go through my different atoms on my periodic table and just scroll through and see what those are. So my blue line is telling me what atom I'm currently on and where I expect those peaks, right? So right now it's saying if I have chromium present, I would expect two peaks right there where those blue lines are. And you can see there's not any peaks there, so that metal does not have any chromium. Not really a shock. Now you can see that both of those lines line up. So what element is that? Oh, we can't quite see it. It's a really small one. Copper. Okay. So when you look at this, do you think copper? No. What do you expect copper to be? Nice and shiny when it's new. As it gets older, it turns, I heard it faintly green and blue, right? And then it sort of peters off. If you're really close up here, you can see there is some blue green here, but most of it is that dark color. So this helps us understand the, yeah, it is mostly copper. Not just kind of copper, but really very, very much copper. Now, most of the time, copper does have something else with it. So if we look at our very small peaks, we can see what those are. So down there, we have a little bit of iron put in here. So that's part of what's making this so it's not super soft and just kind of bending at a wind is it's got some other metals in it. So there's iron there, and you can see it's not very much. So XRF does tell us relative amounts based on the peak height, how much of each kind of metal there is. So there's a little bit of iron in there. And this is one of the metals that we definitely expect, tin. Okay? So some of you that know more about brass and alloys that are made of brass are like, oh yeah, tin and copper, these go together, and we get made into an alloy. Okay, so we're going to abandon that one for a little bit. Okay, so we'll leave those peaks so we can compare to our next object. Here we have some very lovely earrings, and if you're looking at these, you might describe these as having more of a copper color. Okay, they're a gold coppery color to them. Can we tell whether or not it's copper that just hasn't been oxidized like our other piece, or is it something else? Okay, so now watch for the new peaks, because the old ones are going to be in blue. It's coming up. And the new ones are in red. Are our new red peaks in the same place as our blue ones? Oh, yeah. Even though they look very similar to what we would expect to be a copper color, it's clearly not copper. And now I'm going to pause for just a second. So I'm going to a high molecular weight. These are very heavy atoms. And as they go higher in molecular weight, they have higher energy needed to move out. And I'm getting pretty high up there. Okay? So then I kind of have to switch which energies I'm looking at. So I'm going to change which energies I'm looking at. And now I'm going to switch back to the bottom. Okay, because now it has a different energy level that I'm looking at. Okay, so now I'm at palladium. Do we have palladium present? No, yeah, because we don't have a lot of peaks. We have some little tiny ones there, but we'll come back to those in a second. Okay, so I don't have palladium. Well, that's not a shocker. Those are gold color. We wouldn't expect palladium to be present. I do, however, have gold present. Okay, and so there's a good lineup of that gold on those three peaks. And because I'm looking at a different set of peaks, now instead of just looking for two peaks to confirm what I have present, I'm looking for three peaks to confirm what's present. And so these are mostly gold earrings, totally different metal. Even though when you were describing gold and copper to somebody, you would use the same kinds of descriptors about shiny, copper color, and all that. So now I switch back to copper, and even though these are gold, they do have a little bit of copper in it. Just like all of our jewelry that we have today, they put something else in there to keep it from being so squishy and just losing its shape entirely. So one of those elements that they put in there is copper. And it looks like a little bit of nickel. I haven't run this one before, so that's my cat. So copper and nickel go into those, and they have very fine detail, and that's one of the reasons they were able to get that fine detail. Is they didn't just have them, they had these other elements. Okay, the other thing that we're going to look at today is color. Color is interacting with those outside electrons. So inner electrons have really high energy. The outside electrons have a pretty low energy to them. And so we can get to that by just doing simple, easy measurements. Now, our eyes deliver the light, right? And that's a fairly low energy electromagnetic spectrum of light. Everybody's eyes are different. Now, archaeologists started doing their work ages ago when we didn't have fancy equipment. And so they are really attached to their Munsell books. And their Munsell books, they take their Munsell books with their little palettes and compare color, which is great right up until the light that goes into making that measurement changes. Today outside, if you were measuring the color of something, would be a very different color that, even if it's the same object, than a bright sunshiny day. And that's a different color than under these fluorescent lights, because there's different wavelengths of light coming in. So we can take color measurements using a meter like this, and this one has two different settings on it, and there's lots of different settings. One of the settings is RGB, and in your monitor, you also have RGB color settings. And so it can tell you, hey, I'm displaying this color, and here's the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. In your eyeball are pretty much those same channels. You have cones that are red sensitive, green sensitive, and blue sensitive. And so it matches pretty well with what our eyeball is up to. Not entirely, but pretty close. It also has hue, saturation, and lightness as a setting. And those are the two most common ways that we measure color when we display them for computers, and a lot of times when things get recorded for color. So I'm going to take the color of two things here. This first piece has a definite white to it, right? It looks fairly white. It's a fairly neutral color, but it does have color to it. So if I point my thing at it and then let it take a moment to get a measurement, it tells me that the red channel is 406, the green channel is 332, and the blue channel is 249. For those of you that deal a lot in color, you're like, wow, that's really high. This is actually a 64-bit color rather than a 32-bit color, so it's going to be a little bit higher. But they're all pretty equal. And white, in general, is going to be fairly even. Now, some of you that do decorating are going to be like, yeah, but not all whites are created equal. Or if you're trying to match a color on your outfit, not all whites are created equal. And that's telling us, hey, this white has a little bit more red and green than it does blue. Okay? And we can do that, and you can flip through your Munsell book, and it'll take you a little while to match this. I'm going to guess it probably takes a skilled person a couple minutes to match that, and an unskilled person probably 5 minutes to flip through their book and get that. And I did it in 30 seconds. This one has a definite red to it, and so when I take a color of that, that one has 378 for red, 257 for green, and 204 for blue. So it still has some of the other colors to it. If you were describing this color, you'd be like, well, it's kind of like a brick red. And I'm like, well, is it your brick red? Is it a brick red from a particular region? And now I can say very clearly what that color is, record it in something, and then get a computer screen to also give me that color from that recording without having to physically be present with the object. I know what that color is.
Okay, I'm going to talk about digital imaging. This is a very important process in archaeology generally, especially for excavations where we don't bring back artifacts. It used to be that archaeologists brought back quite a lot of the artifacts they found, but of course as political changes develop, that is no longer the situation, right? These artifacts belong to the countries in which they're found. So how do we study them after we leave the field? We use a variety of digital imaging technologies. I'm going to use examples from the Cohen family collection, but many of these techniques are applicable to a wide range of artifacts and finds. So first I'm going to talk about is reflectance. Well, let's look at this. We'll use this as an example. Take a look at this plaque, and Jennifer held it up just a few minutes ago. You can look at it a little bit later. It's on the front table here. A photograph, and I just took this photograph this last week, only shows a limited amount of detail. There are a number of questions you might have. You can clearly see there's a figure, but what are the details of the figure? What is it, he or she, wearing? It's not quite clear. It looks like some sort of a skirt or, and especially the left arm. There's something rather large on the left arm. And there's some animals, or at least an animal, a four-legged animal near the bottom walking along with the individual. And something else on this person's shoulder. If we held the artifact, we would innately hold it up to the light and shift it around at different angles, right? Trying to catch details. Well, if we don't have the artifact, we can't do that. And even if we do have it, the lighting conditions are probably suboptimal. So we use a technology called Reflectance Transformation Imaging. And that means that you're basically taking pictures, several dozen pictures, from different, with light impacting the artifact at different angles. So it has to be in a dark room. I use the LED flashlight. It's a fairly simple technology. And you can see here one of the setups. But what one is doing then is producing, you can see on the top right of the photo, kind of a diagram of what you're aiming for. Each red point represents the angle of light on the artifact. Just to the left there is a marble. This is actually a black marble, and the light spot on it indicates where the light is shining. And actually, we use two marbles beside. If you can look at the photograph there on the plate below the camera, there's two black round objects. These are these shiny marbles. And the software will identify where on the circle of the marble the light spot is, and then calculate that as the direction of the light. And I have a couple of examples here of composites of all the pictures. Think of spokes of a wheel or pieces of a pie. And each white circle down there represents where the light was when one photograph was taken. What this means then, with an interactive digital photograph, one can sort of move the light source around. I'm going to pop out briefly from my slideshow so I can show you the example with this artifact. Okay, the light is now, look at the green circle up there in the top right. There's the light spot in the middle. I can drag that around in different directions. So let's pull it over to the right, and it's as if the light were now shining from the right-hand side. We can see a lot of details. Clearly, this animal that is being held by the horns by the man. The man's left hand there to the right of the picture is covered with some sort of maybe garment. It's hard to tell. Let's drag the light down further, especially as we come up from, 7 o'clock. Think of the clock where the numbers are. But I'm coming up from that direction, we begin to get more detail on the animal that is on the man's shoulder. What is it? There's this curved line that comes up around. But you can see with the light here that it doesn't actually connect with that object to the left of the man's head. That's actually the animal's head. This is a tail coming up, and it's a clear sort of bulb on the end of the tail, or termination. It also is now clear that there's a leg wrapping across the front of the man's chest down here. So we have a few more details that we can research. And indeed, I did that. Let's go back to our screen, our point, and I'll minimize this. And an image search turned up that indeed there is an idea represented in Near Eastern art of a man with a horned animal being grasped by one hand, and then a monkey on his shoulder. This happens to be from the Ptolemaic period in Egypt. It's right here in LA at the Walters Art Museum. Not identical because the horned animal is an ibex and he's actually holding it up in his hand. So I continued looking. Here's another example also from Egypt, the Saite period. This is quite late, a little bit before the Ptolemaic period. And again, it's closer, right? There's a full-sized ibex at his side, and then the monkey is being held up on a hand. We have even closer parallels in Mesopotamia. This ivory carving was found in Nimrud, so that was the capital of Assyria for 250 years. And a number of ivory carvings, rather famous ones, have been found there, including some that might have been looted from Samaria when the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. This one, though, is a really good match for what we have. It's no longer an ibex, it's an oryx, one of the antelope species. And notice the man's hand is grasping it near the lower part of the horns, close to the head. And the monkey on the shoulder is sitting with his leg across the man's chest. And in fact, we can now, and this is from the Metropolitan Museum in New York, there's a write-up about his clothing. It's a leopard skin hung over his arm, and then the kilt is described in some detail. So if I put them side by side and I flip the Met image so that it matches our plaque, you can see it's really a close match. You now can tell what this thing is on the individual's arm. It's a leopard skin, and it's an oryx striding by his side, being grasped by the horns. And the monkey, look at the leg, it's exactly the same. It comes down front with the foot crossing his chest. It's the same thing we saw on the plaque. So light reflectance transformation can help us pull out details that would otherwise be difficult to ascertain, and is a great method for research. Okay, other types of imaging. 3D scanning is important to us. We use it a lot, especially for pottery in digs. We're going to use one of the examples from the Cohen collection, but much of what we find is not whole on digs. It's pottery fragments, sherds. And so we use these to reconstruct life in antiquity. You look at a picture like this, and of course it's got one of those old refrigerators, the latches, right? Kids used to play hide and seek and get stuck in them, so they stopped making latch refrigerators. Inside, you can see any details. You would note there's no plastic, just bottles, even a milk bottle. You begin to look at details like this, and I bet many of you would be able to place this work. What decade? Anybody want to say what decade they would?
50s.
Well, yeah, somewhere, I hear numbers centering around the 40s. I think that's a pretty good estimate. Well, archaeology, we don't get all of all of that range of materials, but we do get pottery, and everything that humans touch or make, there's an artistic element that changes over time. So with pottery fragments, we want to reconstruct them and image them as best possible. We use a Next Engine 3D scanner. It's up here in the center of the table, in front of the room. And one can place a pottery sherd or a whole vessel on the apparatus, and then it goes through a series of scans that produces then an image. Now, that we can continue to process through other software and produce these pottery plates, we call them, with sections of the pottery that really highlight the changing stylistic elements that allow us to date typologically, and they create a seriation or a change through time chronology. Using the same goblet from the Cohen family collection that Jennifer took some color readings from, we can see much of that color variance. But a front-on photograph, again, is not going to allow us to sort of manipulate the artifact in 3 dimensions. And so I ran this through the Next Engine, and you can see here the partial scan. It rotates it, takes laser light readings of it, does a photograph too from each angle, and then from that we can get a complete image. Now, initially the laser beams are taking thousands of spot points, and we call this the point cloud. And then it produces a mesh, and that's what I'm showing you here. It's where it connects those depth readings to create a smooth surface following all of those points. And then the third step is to apply what's technically called the texture, but that would be the photographic overlay until we get something like this. And here it's just on a rotation, so you can see as it goes around. But when I pull it up in, why don't I do this? I'll pause this and bring up the mesh that I can actually move. We can look at it from any angle and spin it around and get zoom in on it. Even I'll use my mouse. That's what I'm used to. There we go. And we can move around and look at a different angle. So this is a very powerful tool that we use a lot, and we expect that in the future we'll be able to do additional computational, probably through AI, of analysis and comparison of artifacts without having to pour through all of the volumes of publications individually. We have one more new technology that we just acquired a few weeks ago. and it also is at the front, and it's called a laser-aided profiler. Many times with the sherds, we just need to get the pottery plates produced. And the laser scanner takes a lot longer. There's a lot more steps involved because you're doing a whole three-dimensional processing. With the profiler, I'll hold it up here for you to see. So this is a unit that has a laser, a camera at the bottom, camera at the top, and then you can see in the diagram, it shoots up these lasers and makes measurements, and then there's also a photographic component to it. And then in basically one step, you can get the thickness of the pottery sherd because it's reading from both disc sides and producing that profile, and then you can stamp it, you can produce the whole plate in a really efficient manner. So this is really exciting new technology coming out of Europe, actually, Bratislava instead of Slovakia. And with that, I think we'll move to Raul, who's going to talk about another way of imaging.
All right. I am going to talk about drawings. And after all these wonderful techniques here, why are we going to draw the stuff when this technology can give us a better image of the things? Well, stipple drawings, it has a history. And it all started with this gentleman, Giulio Campagnola, in Italy. And you can tell by the dates that it was a long time ago. So we had the printing press at this time, but we cannot print photographs because photography does not exist yet. So when people wanted to make several copies of something, they would take a block of wood and etch the drawing in it, and then pass the ink and press the paper on it, and you have the copy. So this gentleman invented this type of drawings using little edges on a block of wood and produce the pictures. Now the question is, does it have really value for us as archaeologists? Yes, it does, because it shows the objects in a kind of a 3D way, so you can see depth in these objects. And in the infancy of archaeology, archaeologists wanted to promote what they found, and they printed. So, having done photography, they started drawing their findings. The probably best example of all that is the expedition of Napoleon to Egypt. He took a bunch of artists with him, a lot of other scholars, to analyze the things that they found there, and they produced these incredible volumes of the history of Egypt with these drawings and these paintings that these artists did. Well, today, people use still this system of drawing. And stipple, it means a dot. If you look at the picture there, you see a bunch of dots. And when you put all the dots together, the image is darker, and when you spread them out, it's lighter. So with this technique, you can show the depth in the drawings, and you can do anything with it. But let's go back to archaeology. Heinrich Schliemann, the famous archaeologist who found the city of Troy, he did his own drawings in the publications that he later had of his findings. And on the right, you can see he drew his own wife wearing some of the jewelry that they found there, thinking that it was probably the jewelry of Helen of Troy. And then on the left, you see God Apollo riding 4 horses, also from a plaque in one of the buildings. Later on, stipple drawing continued being the favorite for archaeologists, and you can use it to express several things. It could be something very simple, like the middle left drawing of that plow, or something more complex. Now, when I started studying archaeology here at the center, I had no idea that this existed. Okay? I've seen pictures in books, but I never actually paid attention to it, and nobody ever told me anything about it. But when I came here and I look at the things, and one day I decided to draw a simple dipper that was laying around on the counter after somebody had analyzed it. And I just drew it, a little sketch. And Dr. Bramlett saw it, and then Dr. Clark saw it, and then later Dr. Geraty saw it. And all three said, why don't you do stipple? And I'm thinking, what is stipple? So Dr. Bramlett lent me a book, which is in the small displays here on the right when you get out of this room. And I started trying. So these are my infancy drawings in stipple, which I thought, oh, I'm an artist. Of course I can do this. On the right, it's a Herodian lamp. And on the left, there's a Hellenistic lamp. Both pieces belong to CNA. And these were my practice drawings. And if you look at the dates there, it's July 23, less than 2 years ago. So the things that we use are magnifying glass, because there are a lot of details that we have to see. A ruler, and definitely we need to use a caliper, okay, to measure different parts of the drawing, of the artifact. And then a fine point pen, yes, pencil sometimes, and then we continue practicing. My third practice. A very simple jaglet. And yeah, this was the fourth, I believe. And you're going to see this lady in the first exhibit right there from the Iron Age era. It's a figurine. And yes, by request of Dr. Clark, here are your spindles, Dr. Clark, that you asked me to draw. So it takes a long time to draw, at least to me, because I'm new at this. I'm pretty sure a consumer artist experience over the years can do it very quickly. No, I take a little bit more of time. And yeah, sometimes it might not even look exactly, but here we are. And this is my take of the chalice, the goblet that we are talking about during this afternoon. There are some interesting things that you can see, I'm pretty sure, when you look at books and other encyclopedias, and particularly in the reviews that archaeologists have to produce after the dig to show to the world what was found. Dr. Bramlett showed to you the pieces of pottery, and those are things that people have to draw. I've seen here at the lab Dr. Larry Herr drawing pottery. I drew a piece of pottery once, and it took me almost an hour. He was sitting there with a piece of pottery in front of him, and he was done with an incredible artistry. Of course, even though I'm already a senior citizen, I think I'm in my infancy in stipple drawing, and it's an art that I surely will pursue and try to get better at it.
Thank you, Jennifer and Kent and Raul. Any questions you would like to ask them?
So, Dr. Helbley, would you tell us a little bit about the scale at the bottom of that spectroscopy? I assume that was something to do with energy when you were measuring the various energies of electrons. And also, was that an attenuator of some kind that we're using to prompt the peaks to be elevated like that?
Yeah, so at the bottom of the scale is energy, and it's measured for X-ray fluorescence in electron volts, which is a very interesting measurement of energy. But by tradition, each kind of spectroscopy has its own measurement of energy and how it displays it. And that's one of the really interesting things about moving and transitioning between the different ways that we measure things in chemistry and physics and archaeology and all that stuff. So in chemistry, we measure traditionally in electron volts for our X-ray fluorescence, but we can convert that into joules, and joules is the SI unit for energy. And that correlates also, we can measure the visible wavelength of light in joules. So it's all of these, both of the techniques that I showed is we're throwing things of a very particular energy of electromagnetic waves, and then looking for that response, whether that's absorption or fluorescence. And so fluorescence is actually not the scattering that the other techniques are using, where it's just taking that light and seeing what happens to it and measuring it back. Fluorescence is the atom absorbs that, an electron changes its energy and goes to a higher energy, and then goes back down. And when it goes back down, it emits a different wavelength altogether from what originally absorbed. And so that's what makes it fluorescence, and that is the energy scale on the bottom there. And then when we were scaling, that's just basically using the pinch and zoom on that. It's just scaling so that you can see that those lower peaks better. We can run the scan for longer to get a higher resolution to those various peaks. And when we're doing very careful work, we will run it for a longer time period.
Any other questions here? Okay, yes, Abram, microphone's coming.
In the field, in the Maraba Plains projects, have you used infrared?
No, we haven't, but I would love to do a multispectral imaging of some of our ink, ostraca, so ink on potsherds. That's very helpful. And manuscripts, you use that in your work, I'm sure. Maybe in the future.
Jennifer, I have a question for you. You, several years ago, made a presentation kind of like this, more of a formal academic presentation on why the color standards that everybody uses, business, marketing, everywhere, pretty close, except archaeology. Well, okay. Did you persuade the archaeologists at this annual archaeology conference that shifting from our faithful Munsell books with the little things that takes us minutes to go through, did you persuade anybody?
No. Color is a really, really interesting thing, because we have done it for so long. Various industries are very tied to their measures of colors. And to be fair, RGB color does not capture 100% of the colors that we can see. So there is that. However, it captures a good portion of what we can see, and the reproducibility of it is much higher quality. There are several different ways to arrive at color, and our measurement techniques for each one of those ways to arrive at color is actually different. So take, for instance, glass, right? If I say the word glass, you already have a picture in your mind of what that's looking like. But what you aren't having in concept there is when light goes through glass, the glass absorbs some of that light. We don't always notice it. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Some glass, if you have it, you're behind that glass, you will not get a sunburn. Great, hallelujah. Some glass, you will still get a sunburn through it. And so inherently that glass is letting through that light, that UV light that is giving you that sunburn, and sometimes it isn't. And so when we measure color of glass, that is a different type of measurement than what we would use this instrument for, because then we would measure what's going through the glass and being absorbed by the glass. The Munsell books are decent at doing it, and they don't require electricity. which I get, and that's fair. But they are very much designed around reflective measurement of light. And a lot of people have gotten very attached to being able to say the color or guess the color based off of that system. And so when you go and talk to people that are in print, they'll say something like the Pantone color, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't know what Pantone eggshell looks like. But people that work in the print industry do have a concept of that. And so being able to relay information in a short order is very valuable.
I'm actually sold on what Jennifer's talking about. No, okay. Raul, please.
They've been mentioning the Monzo book. This is the thing. So yeah, compare each piece. Compare each piece to this until you find the right match. And how was it? 30 seconds? No.
30 seconds to do my measurement.
Can we take one of those?
We use those in the field, and the problem is that when we use them in the field, if you do it in the shade, it can be different from if you do it in the sun. So Jennifer sold me on this. So we haven't shifted quite yet at CNEA, but any other questions? Yes, please. Let's get them. Thanks.
I was intrigued by the drawings, and I must say I was impressed with the detail and what the various balance, what was shown in that. But I missed the idea of the whole purpose of doing the drawings. What is the ultimate goal of doing those drawings?
Should we let the artist respond to that?
Sure.
Kent?
Let me say a word and then Raul. Yeah, basically, we still value the interpretive eye. And the artist brings sort of a human interpretation of what you're looking at. You might find a coin that's very eroded, and you photograph it, and it picks up everything, all of the sort of the distractions, right? But the artist will draw that, and it'll pull out. We had an example with Alexander the Great's head on this coin, and then once the artist draws it, you can represent those elements that were really original part of it. But let Raul speak.
Yeah. When I started doing this, like I said before, I didn't know anything about it. And so Dr. Clark gave me a list of artifacts, and he gave me the box like, here, please draw this. So I started drawing. And later, after I drew, I saw some of the books that were published before with drawings. And I discovered, he asked me to draw this, but somebody already drew it. And I compared, and they were different. They were different. So that happened particularly with the coin. They gave me the coin, and I was like, okay, what is this? And I put it under the magnifying glass and everything. And I started doing the old way of drawing with shading, with pencil. I can't figure out what this is, And then I go, and then here comes Kaylin, who was working here at the time, said, yeah, that looks like this, like that, and we were both pondering, Finally, we discovered it was the head of somebody. But the coin was so corroded, right, that I could not make it out. Until somebody pointed, it's a head, look it. It took a moment just to tilt the coin a little bit. Oh, that's a head. Okay, so I would have probably drawn that coin without knowing that it was a head until somebody tilted my drawing. I would say, hey, it's a head. What? It was a head. So it's like Dr. Clark said, there's a little bit of the artist's interpretation, but it should be to document. Because that's the whole purpose of the drawing, to document what the thing is.
Okay, but we've got a microphone there. Oh, so
It was a comment because I'm a volunteer here and I worked on a lot of coins, identifying a lot of coins. And really helped to be able to see them if I was working from a photograph. And Doug and I have an example of something, that there was a coin that we wanted to identify, and all we had was a photograph, and it's flat. It's 2 dimensions, and it doesn't show you where the convex places are or where the concave places are. And so I got a pretty good description of it, but there's one place on it where I can't tell whether it's raised or whether it's incised in, and we don't have the coin, and we don't have a better photograph, and so there we are.
Thank you. We need to thank our presenters again. It's been so interesting, though, to hear about this technology. If you can see on the screen, we'll give some updates and in memoriam moment, and then the awards. So CNEA as Little Jordan. You'll notice the placard or the banner behind Jennifer and Raúl. This was made last November as we celebrated our center as Little Jordan. And the reason is, I'll actually come to it. I got a slide specially dedicated to it. And when I get to that, I'll talk about what's behind me. Okay? So I'll come back to that. Excavations and projects, the newly enclosed and lighted patio, which is right through this door. Programs, lectures, research, publications. La Sierra Digs, you have the spring issue in front of you. There is a 50th anniversary volume of the Mataba Plains Project that is coming out in August. And the title you see there, Narrating Archaeological Sites and Places. And that represents a lot of work. How many of you have been a part of either Hesban or Ameri or Jalul? Raise your hand. Okay, see, that's pretty good. Good representation, thank you. And then the next seasonal volume is coming out too. And then I want to say something about the library and its transformation, and then some new web pages. So you see from this slide the various sites for which CNEA is responsible. Beginning at the top of Jordan, near the top of Jordan, near the northern part, in Ammonite territory, moving down to the central part, ancient Moabite territory, moving down to the southern part, ancient Edomite. We've got Jordan covered. From the Iron Age, we've got Jordan covered. And there is simply no place in the world that has as much of Jordan as you are surrounded by. There is no place. There are 35 tons of research material out here and in a couple of back rooms. We have everything that we've ever found, virtually, that we didn't have to give to the government, in a modular from Ameri. Balula now is producing. So in any case, and you see these retractable banners behind me. Don Acevedo, who is in Texas and who's monitoring our online presence. So these were all designed by her. They give a consistent picture of the different sorts of projects we're involved in, and that ties into the banner over there at Little Jordan. Okay, so the outside, the patio, you see here in the picture. Inside, with lights now that are about 3 weeks old. Otherwise, it's fairly dark in there, so now there is work that will be beginning here soon. It's partly organized, but with these tons of material, it's going to take a lot of time to organize them so that people can come. People already are coming to do research on this material. They're already coming to do research, have been for years, on the Ameri material. So that's been exciting. And if we don't have it organized, that's a real problem. So we owe it. We owe it to the advancement of knowledge to do best practices, and we try. So there's another picture looking the other way of the patio. This is an old picture, but it represents what happened on April 8, right, Kaylin and Raul, the Archaeology Adventures program. So you can actually think of the same sort of children here And the same sort of children here are working. But in any case, that program is really exciting and an important part of our mission. We now do Archaeology Weekend in the fall, November. We do winter archaeology lectures in mid-February, and then we do the homecoming lecture. This is part of our outreach mission. We feel obliged to do that and are happy to do so. We did 2 this time on the ancient Amorites. Research on the materials inside of this ancient 5,000-year-old burial called a dolmen at Tel El Ameri. It continues on, and probably about 20 skulls, or probably 20 to 25 individuals. These individuals occupy a room about 60 feet behind me. They are here. And we've had teams of specialists come studying ancient DNA, studying pathologies, doing all of the analytical sorts of things with human remains. The library, thanks to Terry and Howard over here, and lots of people in here who've worked with them too, to transform the library, the Larry Geraty Library, which has expanded to all kinds of contributions, and putting it into the Library of Congress system and connecting it with the campus library. That has been hours, days, weeks, and months, and years of activity. And we'll not predict how many more of those. But in any case, we'll get there at some point. And then Dawn Acevedo again has developed, she and I worked together on some new web pages for our website, including a brief history and about us page. It's got several things, our mission statement and so on, and the staff. Then the academic programs, the undergraduate, major and minor, and then the master's. And then a donor honor roll listed with the oldest archaeological time periods given to those who have donated the most. We're not sure about using archaeological periods here, but do you belong to the Byzantine period? Do you belong to the Iron Age? Well, okay, you're giving level. Thank you very much to all of you who've done that. And you'll see it. It not only includes financial contributions, but gifts in kind as well, and grants that have come through CNEA. And over the last 11 years, the total is over $2 million. So we're incredibly grateful for donors and to USAID, God rest its soul, and to the State Department. They're not doing it anymore either. When I go to Jordan now, nobody can count on USAID or US support. So we're shifting. We're trying to work this through to keep projects going. And then the in memoriam page. This is a page with short statements and pictures about the people who have passed away, who've been close to us. And so this one, Audrey Schaefer, who passed away at the end of January this year, this is one of those images. One will be able ultimately to click on this and go beyond it and read the obituary that the family puts together, the tribute that I wrote for our winter issue of Lossier Digs, the award that she won in here with the Archaeological Awards, and also we dedicated volume 8, MPP 8, to her for our work at America. You can read about her. Okay, Archaeology Weekend, the 17th annual, coming up in November, this time on Alexander the Great and how he changed the world. This mosaic was found at Pompeii. We will be looking at art history and archaeology surrounding Alexander the Great. Okay, awards. Got to talk about awards. So if we are thinking about the past, we began this in 2019, and see whose name is first up there, right? So Audrey Schaefer, and 2 former presidents, Randall Wisby and Lawrence Geraty. Larry is here. 2020, anybody remember what happened in 2020? Something like COVID. So we ended up combining those. Suha and Gary are here. Gary is there. Suha is out in the lobby. Vera Kopecki has been a part of our work for a long time. Norman Jurgen and Darla, she is so much a part of what we do here. And she is our immediate front. She's the one who does our PR for us. And she and Dawn are the ones who really do the communication. Carolyn Waldron, I think I saw Gary earlier. Gary's in the back, her husband. Daniel Hantman, who passed away, and his partner, Marcia Gilman. And then last year, Terry and Howard for their work in the library, and Denise Herr, Dr. Larry Herr's wife, who's passed away. This year, 3 more. Okay, we begin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these, say something about each one, and then I'll have them all come up at the same time. Okay. So first of all, Dr. Ronald and Francine, who has passed away, Dirksen. And here they are. The definition of the photo is not as good as we had hoped, but it pictures Dr. Dirksen and his wife, Francine. Dr. Dirksen has long been interested in antiquity. He is a physician and practices physical medicine and rehabilitation, neurology, and in Salt Lake City for what, 6 decades now? Something like that. But his main interest has been coins. So he has donated. I have 3 of them here, and I'll put them out, but I'm going to guard them, okay? There are 3 coins from the Bar Kokhba revolt, the Jewish revolt, in 132 to 135 AD against the Romans, which actually was successful for a period of time. But when the Romans sent 6 legions into Palestine and wiped out hundreds of thousands, and the Bar Kokhba event was over. That was the last uprising. In any case, I've got the coins. We are so pleased, Dr. Dirksen, for your commitment to archaeology and to these coins, and to the contributions that you've made to the center and to the proposed new museum. Thank you. Okay, so we'll clap for all of them together when we finish. So, Murray and Josiane Brandstater, we are so pleased that you are here in Redlands. I have some stories to tell. You come on an archaeological dig, Murray, and we've got stories, okay? I've got a couple about you. Here they are in the Bedouin tent on a sunnier day, okay? In a photo there. I'm not sure what event this was, but not only are we admiring this couple, notice the people to the left of them, to our left as we look at the photo. That's all I can do is look at this couple walking down here. I mean, it's amazing. Quite the notoriety here. Here is Dr. Brandstater, Murray, on the right-hand side. And if you look carefully, this is Field A, excavation team in 2012. And if you look carefully, you'll notice the third person, the second person from him, Audrey, is tucked away back in there, okay? And if you go a little bit further, Vera Kopecki is there. And then it's all young people, which is good. It's good to see the young people and coming and taking archaeology seriously. Dr. Brandstater put everybody else to shame. You'll see that in his work. I mean, he was one excavator, and he was busy, and he turned out, he's an archaeologist, let's face it. He may think of himself as the physician, physical medicine, and rehabilitation, and, well, with neurology as well. I don't know, did you agree on what you were going to do when you went to Loma Linda? Is this how this happened? And now this, I don't want to read this whole thing. That's not a good thing to do when you've got a whole crowd of people here. But This was, in 2012, one of the DIG participants, Dr. Brandstater, his impression of the excavation. And he focused on one thing, and you see it in the picture on the right, of people trying to navigate a bulk. These are dirt and stone areas that we leave until we've excavated down, and then we come back and remove them later. And he developed a name for what people walking on this dangerous bulk did. So I'm partway down the first paragraph. To an onlooker, the line of bodies progressing back and forth across the bulk would have offered an intriguing spectacle. Individuals would be seen making sudden random athetoid. Now that's got to be medical, right? Okay. So, like waving movements of the arms, interspersed with the occasional ballistic fling. That's great language. The upright body would unexpectedly contort with a sudden sideways lean or forward flexion, and there was no regular bipedal rhythm to placement of the feet. Timing and step length were irregular and amusingly inconsistent. This is a doctor talking, okay? And I'm going to read a little bit more where only a doctor can say it. Okay? Further down. So I considered naming this spectacle at Ameri the archaeologist's dance, or simply the bulk dance, but I finally settled on calling it the bulk walk. I wondered what the reception might be if I were to introduce it to a Hollywood nightclub. From what I've seen on the occasional video, the bulk walks seem to have much in common with what happens on a typical nightclub dance floor. But I quickly realized that the chaotic movements of the bulk walk could never synchronize with the regular pounding beat from the band. The movements of the bulk walk were so spontaneous, arbitrary, erratic, haphazard, aimless, inconsistent, arrhythmic, and unchoreographed that patrons would just never be able to follow. They would simply stay with what they had, varying patterns of obscene gyrations as they participate in a rude public display of virtual sex. Only doctors can say that, okay? I'm just saying. I'm just reading. It's online, okay? You can find it. But so the bulk walk will have to stay at Ameri, and once the excavation has been completed, it will depart. Remembered only by those who danced in and who impatiently yearned to see its revival next season. That was a great description, a great impression of the 2012 season. So appreciated that a lot. Okay, moving on to Alina and Victor Tolan. They are not here. I'm not sure if they are online or not. They will see the video. In any case, their major life vision has been to travel. And you'll see why when I get to the end. Here, of course, in a familiar place, I'll need help in locating this location. It looks like something in Saudi, maybe. Saudi Arabia. What do you think? Some of you may have been to places. I would think Cambodia. Are we talking Angkor Wat? The structures are the same. Okay, it's in Spain. Architecture is similar, right? Okay. We'll get on the right continent. Here, of course, says Australia, Sydney Opera House, Easter Island. Victor Tolan has been to 150 countries. Alina has been to 130 countries. Alina has not been to Jordan, and we're going to fix that. We want Alina to come to Jordan. She's been a part of our advisory council for a long time. Here they are now with their family, Bianca, the older daughter, and Andrew. And here at the Great Wall of China, here at Machu Picchu, okay. And then in Jerusalem at the Western Wall, and then looking from the Mount of Olives across to the Dome of the Rock and to Jerusalem. And here they are at some event at La Sierra University. I don't know what this event was. Maybe somebody here can remember. But here they are. And I want to say something now about their children. Andrew, on the left, is in his third year at Loma Linda, a PhD program in bioengineering. And Bianca, on the right, is just completed last year her PhD in neuropsychology and is working for the VA in Loma Linda and has, along with Matthew, one toddler. And so they are their family. Their family has expanded. And the Tolans, Victor and Alina, now have a granddaughter. This is what Alina wrote, okay? Don't go to the yellow first, okay? That's the bold. That's my emphasis, okay? So traveling is a hobby for us, but it has also changed us, allowing us to experience cultures that otherwise we would not have had an opportunity to encounter. It definitely has made us more aware of the privileges and blessings that we have and helped us appreciate our life better, as well as understanding and becoming more tolerant of other cultures. As Mark Twain has said, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. I put the emphasis there. I put the color font, so I get the chance to read it again, okay? Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And we wanted to expose our children to the world early on to have them understand other people and cultures. Those are our 3 awardee couples. So I want to have Dr. Turkson and I want to have the Brandstaters come, and we will present them with an award. And we will, once they come up here, we'll applaud them all, and we will give the Tolans their awards later. Come on. I know they collaborated in medical school. They must have. For the same programs. Okay, so this award is for Dr. Ronald and Francine Dirksen in recognition for years of engagement and generous support for the archaeology program at La Sierra University. The Lawrence T. Geraty and Douglas R. Clark Center for Near Eastern Archaeology proudly honors you with this achievement award. Okay, the second one here. Dr. Murray and Josiane Brandstater. In recognition for years of generous support of the archaeology program at La Sierra and participation in our excavations in Jordan, the Lawrence T. Geraty and Douglas R. Clark Center for Near Eastern Archaeology proudly honors you with this achievement award. Thank you, Darla, and thank you. We appreciate your many contributions to the center and your published remarks, impressions of the 2012 season at Tel Alumni. We'll never forget those, okay? And then we will get the ones to the Tolans. Thank you so much for coming. I do want to say thank you to several people. I'm thinking of our team, our IT team here, Gabe Mendoza and Martin. I want to think about the physical plant people, custodial people who make this place shine. They have done an amazing job, and we appreciate that. You know, we're digging around in dust, and we've got dust all over the place, but the custodial team makes us look really good. The CNEA team, so we're thinking about staff and students and volunteers. I'm thinking especially of Raul and Dawn and Caitlin. Certainly to CNEA supporters, many of you sitting in front of me fit that category. Thank you so much. And the Cohen family and other artifact and library donors. I want to make sure that you know that there are these exhibit display cases outside. One of them, the first one, the one directly to outside the door, is from the Cohen family collection. The others are from CNEA. They're all they tend to be Iron Age. They tend to be Biblical era. There's a little bit of Bronze Age, I think, in one of them, but otherwise, that's so. And then I do want to encourage you to enjoy some refreshments. Thank you, Suha, and others in here, Raul, for setting things up. Audrey, if you've been to one of these events before, you will sense Audrey's presence in some of the decorations. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.